Welcome to the Indie Women Podcast, where we introduce you to the fearless women taking their filmmaking careers into their own hands, showing you how indie films get made. And here's your host, Heather Turman.
Hello, and welcome to the Indie Women Podcast. I'm your host, Heather Turman, and this is a show dedicated to the women in the indie film world who have found success bringing their projects to life on their own terms. This show has been such a blast so far. I really hope you're enjoying it. I want to mention that there is also, in addition to the audio version you're likely listening to, there are also full versions of all, full video versions of all episodes available on the Indie Women YouTube channel. So please be sure to give a subscribe and a watch there if you'd like to put a face to any of these wonderful women. Also on the channel, you know, it's a work in progress. I'm looking to grow it. But currently, I am looking to feature short films and the trailers of feature films made by indie women. So if you've got a feature film coming out and the trailer's ready and you want to get more eyeballs on it, send it my way. The same goes for short films. Maybe you've done the festival circuit and you know now it's not out there. Send it my way as well. You know, get more eyeballs on it. For submissions for that, you can send them to indiewomenpodcast@gmail.com. Now that the announcements are out of the way, I'm really excited about this week's episode. I had such an informative conversation that I know you'll enjoy. I got to chat with Linda Palmer. She is the head of Runaway Productions, which is a boutique production company that focuses on commercial and feature film production. And Linda's truly amazing. Like, she does the thing that I think we all want to do. You know, she heads her own company and she, you know, collaborates with other creatives, and they bring projects to life, like, constantly, one after the other. And Linda, of course, is the brains behind the operation. She's the one who got the ball rolling, got it started. And with a background in production design, Linda writes, produces, and directs her own projects. Under her company, she's produced 5 feature films, all of which are available to rent via her website, runawayproductions.tv, or on other major platforms. And during our talk, Linda shared her journey from the very beginning, how she produced her first feature film project, all the way to what she's got in the works today, which she's got some really cool stuff, including a docuseries called Halloween Obsessed, which I think is just really interesting because there are a lot of people who are obsessed with Halloween, and it sounds like they've got some really interesting episodes and have talked to some really interesting people. So Linda's just awesome. Things that interest her, she brings to life. So I really hope it inspires you to get off your butt and make your movies, because I know it certainly inspired me. Now, without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Linda Palmer.
Hello. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being on Indie Women. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure. Looking into your resume and your work, you're an inspiration. You do the indie thing really well, it looks like. And
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, anybody who's able to make that many films independently, you're doing something right. You're working very hard. So it's an honor and a pleasure, and I can't wait to hear all about it. You came into my circle as a recommendation from Lisa Pencil Hall, or I guess Hall
Yes.
Pencil.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. And I see you worked with her husband, who's an actor, on some stuff.
Yes, several times actually.
Oh, cool. Great. I love them. So you keep good people around.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead? I would love to hear how you got started in the indie space, what your journey was like, and we'll go from there. But I would love to hear how you started.
Yeah, no problem. So I started around 1997, and I was really working more in like commercials and sort of what do they call it? Industrial videos, things like that. And I'd been writing, I'd written a couple of scripts, and I started working with this one partner that was he was a director and a storyboard artist. And we were trying to get some stuff off the ground for quite a while. I don't know, I want to say like 5 years. And there was a lot of frustration because some of this, like, we made the first 10 minutes of the first short that we did, or the first feature that we did, and we were going to use that for sort of a tool to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
but there just always seemed to be something that was stopping us from moving forward. And I didn't really realize what that was. And later on, we ended up meeting another line producer and working with him on something. And so he had mentioned to me, he's like, well, if you want to get something done, like, I'd be happy to work with you, whatever. And so I actually optioned another script. Yeah, that was from somebody different. And the line producer is also a director and a producer. And so he literally is like, we could get this made right away. And it was within 6 months we were shooting.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy, and I brought together some of the financing, and, I was involved in the casting and some of the art direction. But during filming, he was, he was like, you're a frustrated director. I'm like, I didn't really realize at the time what he was saying, but really I should have been looking to direct at that time. I don't know why I didn't do that, because I had directed commercials and other stuff. But then I did another film with him, which is where I met Chris Pensel, and that was the wedding video. I optioned that from Inktip, and literally Todd and I, that was my other partner's name, we had a couple of films sort of set up at different places, and people that package 8 films, 6 films at a time. Of course, it never happens, but
yeah.
So anyway, we got the wedding video, and we talked to Chris and convinced him that he should be a producer on it, and he could have a role in it, and he wanted to be the main character. And then we auditioned for it, and we told him, what, you're great for the brother. And so he ended up being the brother. We found a great person to be the lead it was a bride and groom. It's called the wedding video. And we shot that over 5 months. We shot literally maybe 1 day a week at some location. And it had probably 20 locations. And so Todd was editing each bit after we shot. Okay. Yeah, as we're going. Cool. And so literally by the end, he was done within not even a month.
That's amazing. That's great. So that's one way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole film came together in maybe 6 to 9 months. In that time, the other projects fell apart, and we're like, thank God we did something.
Yeah.
But the one thing about that is it was a non-union project. So we didn't have to worry about the SAG contracts. That's part of the problem, is that you can't really delay a project that long, because
when you're doing SAG, it's got to be 3 weeks of principal photography. Yeah.
Or you're paying people in between, yeah. So anyway, those were the first 2 I did. And then after that, I ended up, I was really good friends with my husband. We ended up moving in together. And shortly after that, we decided we wanted to do our own film. And so we did this film called Halloween Party. We're both crazy Halloween freaks.
Love it. Love it.
I know, it's our favorite holiday. So we got married on Halloween.
That's so great.
It was later, but anyway, so we came up with this idea. And then I wrote maybe a 20 to 30 page treatment. I gave it to another writing partner, and she kind of looked over it and gave me some input on structure and stuff. And so I got it up to about 50 pages, but I knew I wanted to be an improv story. Sure. There was a lot of improv I wanted to do in it. And so Chris was also involved with that. Actually, Lisa was in that as well. But so Chris came in, he was one of the main characters, the host. And actually the girl that was that was the bride in the wedding video was his co-host. It was they owned the house, right? It was their party. And so the 2 of them really sort of developed a story with me more. And we talked about who the people were that were coming to their party and why they were there and all this crazy stuff. And so he added a little bit to it. And then I also brought in a co-writer that she added about 20 pages to it. Anyway, we did the film. Great experience.
What was the difference in that way of making something with someone that you were in a relationship with, and therefore having total creative control?
That was very interesting, because Mark, my husband, he actually paid for the entire movie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so at first I was like, hey, I just want to do a film. I want to shoot something at our house for $10,000. Mm-hmm. He's like, you can't make a film for $10,000. I'm like, people are doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, why don't you use like $50,000? I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you don't have to ask me twice.
I know, it's like, okay, so we'll do a film for $50,000. So what we did, some of the mistakes we made is we shot it over 10 nights straight because it was a night, you know, it's a party film.
Yeah.
And so
which when you're shooting in your house, you don't want to, in terms of set dressing and all that stuff, you sort of want to, I mean, that makes sense because you want to live in that space. You don't want to have to tear down and put back up.
It wasn't even that. It's when you work 10 nights straight,
it's exhausting.
Like you're fried.
You're a zombie by the end of the Halloween movie.
And I think, you know, the biggest thing I took away from that is we should have done 5 nights, taken a weekend off, and done another 5 nights. And it would have allowed people to really kind of recuperate. And it was just a lot of energy. Anyway, we don't know how we did it. It was like crazy. But at the end of that, we had really wanted like popular music for it and like stuff that plays on Halloween. Right. And my husband, especially because he loves music and we have these big parties and like he's always putting together playlists. So when we were editing and we were using it for our temp music, we started checking into like, you know, what the cost would be. And it was just outrageous. There's no way we could afford any of that music. Right. And he got really depressed. He's like, why are we even doing this movie? By that time, we were $30,000 over budget. So yeah, so it was like, and that was with no music, right? We ended up putting another, I'm going to say close to $40,000 in music, only because we got the music for the movie. And then we also got the music for a soundtrack. So
yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I noticed on your website, I mean, especially nowadays where multiple revenue streams and merchandise, any way that you can, you know, sell, make more money from your independent movies is great. And so how is that? Like, how did that work? Did you success with that?
You know, we had a lot of things that happened that kind of, we were hitting these blocks where we were doing something innovative and then something happened to stop it. And I'll give you a couple examples. So for instance, with the music, we got the music and we totally planned to create a soundtrack and sell it through like big box Halloween stores. In fact, we were never going to take our movie through like the standard distribution channel. We were making it totally to sell at like Spirit Halloween, all these big Halloween stores.
Yeah, totally.
And so, and I had been in sales for like many, many years and I had reached out to a lot of stores and anyway, so they quit carrying movies.
Oh man.
Like seriously? So then when we made the soundtrack, there was this change between people actually like buying soundtracks and then wanting stuff digitally, like on a little download
It was right
card.
at that like switch.
Right. Same time. And then the whole thing with Napster was happening. So the whole music thing was kind of up in the air. But
was this like, what year was this? Like 2000?
It was 2012, actually.
2012. Oh, wow.
Okay. 2012. Yeah. Where these things were happening with music. But what was really cool about it is within about a year of release, we realized that we could actually try and qualify for the Oscars with our music because it was original music and it fit their criteria.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so we actually submitted and our opening song Voodoo was actually in consideration.
Oh,
it was
cool.
it was on a list of like 75 songs.
That's
and
amazing.
yeah, it was crazy. And actually during that process, because we had so many people in the movie and so many musicians were involved in it, we had so much music. We had 28 original songs and 8 of the 28 were written for our movie.
Very cool.
So yeah, so the music was incredible. And actually it's a fantastic soundtrack. I'll send it to you. You'll love it.
Totally.
If you love Halloween music, it's very, half of the album is very like 70s kind of rock. Like
love that.
Yeah. And then the other half is very like gaga, you know, like dancey kind of music. Maroon 5. So it's really a great mix. And so anyway, that Voodoo song was just an incredible song. It was on this list. And so we were doing all this stuff to try and get people to notice it. So we were going out and like writing on all these blogs and all this. And it actually went up in the 75 songs, it actually got to number 17 in the projections.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. So And it's a year that Adele won for Skyfall. So we have like all these things where it says like Voodoo was on this list of 20 songs.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. And so after that, I kind of knew I could do that with music. And so I was like, okay, anytime you can get somebody to pay attention to your movie, which is really hard when it's an indie,
Yeah.
For Oscar consideration, then that's something we should consider, because it's a route that we could take. And so some of my other films, well, actually a lot of them are music oriented. There's our little tail. Anyway, so we did a couple of shorts. Actually, right after that, we did a short called Our Father with Michael Gross in it, and it dealt with Alzheimer's.
Okay.
And that did really well at the film festivals. And so that was my first sort of effort into like taking a film into festivals.
Yeah.
That was around 2014, 2015. Had I done that with Halloween Party, it probably would have opened up some other doors. And now I know that there's a lot of festivals that they look for that kind of content. I just never thought that a Halloween movie would be like, there would be festivals that could, even be in. But learning about film festivals and sort of marketing a film, I really kind of realized, okay, there's a whole nother way to put a film out there. So then after that, I did, I think I did Last Call at Murray's, which is another feature film.
Yeah, I watched a couple trailers on your website, which by the way is runawayproductions.tv, just to mention that. All your stuff's available there. So yeah, Last Call at Murray's, interesting premise. And I really enjoyed the trailer, but go ahead on. Yeah.
So the interesting thing about that is that's the first script that I ever optioned.
Oh, cool.
That wasn't mine, right? And I loved it from the moment I read it. I was looking for something that was completely contained. Mm-hmm. So it's 13 people trapped in a mountain bar during a blizzard, and it's about how their lives change. And, some people that come together don't leave together. And so I loved the concept, and I'd worked with the writers for several years. It never kind of gelled. I ended up giving it back to the writers. And then a couple of years later, they came back to me and said, hey, we're willing to put some money into it. They had seen Our Father. They had seen me do some of the other stuff I'd done. And we all thought we could do it for, a fairly low budget. So that we could raise. So we did, and we shot that, I think we shot that in 14 days in a studio. Yeah. So that was a really fun experience. Chris was also in that. And cool. Then another actress I worked with from the very first movie I did, Look at Me, Alina Madison, has been in almost every one of my movies except Our Father and Passage. But so there's some actors that I worked with like repeatedly over and over again, which is great.
That's the best. Yeah. Once you know someone's energy, it enables you. I mean, it's so, and how to work with them, when you're working in low budgets. Yeah, it saves time too.
Yeah, and also like your crew, like just having the same crew, or getting to know crew that you really gel with. And so over time, I've worked with a couple of different DPs, all of them great, loved them. But I just really gelled with PJ Gaynard, which I did Last Call at Murray's. He worked a little bit on Halloween Party. He shot Our Father. Then he moved to Pennsylvania. So then I'm like, oh, great, I need to find another DP. So then one of his first ACs I'd worked with, loved her work. She DP'd Carbon Dating, which is a web series I did right after Murray's. And then probably most of my stuff after that, she's shot most of my shorts. And my last feature, Turnover, that I did.
Very cool. And Turnover as well is a really interesting premise. It's and a great trailer. It's that's the restaurant one, right? Like a staff. Yeah. So, totally fun. Where did you shoot that? Has everything been shot in Southern California, or?
Yeah. Everything's been shot in Southern California. Most of it's been shot in Long Beach, which is just where I live.
Cool.
So yeah, we're bringing a lot of work to Long Beach. In fact, my husband's always commenting, because we live on a street called Glendora, and he's like, we should just put a thing at the end of the street, a big sign across that says Glendora Studios.
Totally.
Because we literally shot so many things at like either neighbors' houses, our house, local businesses, like this whole street we've shot stuff on.
You're creating a little community there, which is so interesting in and of itself, in the sense of your neighbors probably, I mean, I don't know if this is true, but you can tell me if it is. Once you start continuing to make projects, like they want to be involved, they want to help out.
Yeah, we have not had any problem with our neighbors. In fact, when I first moved into this neighborhood, I became really good friends with the neighbor that lived right next to Mark. And eventually I also became friends with Mark. But Sandy was one of our producers on Halloween Party. And literally we shot everything in Halloween Party in our house. And all of the production stuff was in her house right next door. And so that was really cool. And then Turnover, our house was more of like the production area where people stayed. And actually, there's a house across the street one of our friends owns that has served as like our makeup house, our wardrobe house. The people that own it are good friends of ours, and they were traveling. He was working outside the country for a while, so they were renting it. So we've rented from them. And then she had a hair salon. So on Halloween Party, like her stylist came and they all like worked on it after work.
That's so great.
So yeah, it definitely had a community feel. And even the wedding video, Sandy worked on that with me. We shot a lot of wedding video, like the parents' house stuff, all at her house. Then we shot like at so many local businesses. It was crazy.
That's great though. I mean, that's really good. Do you find that it's easier to get local businesses on board in Long Beach rather than because LA is impossible? Yeah.
But back to your question about turnover. So the large part of that's in the cafe, right?
Right.
And that was going to be the really expensive part of it, is either getting a restaurant that we could have access to for the time we needed, or trying to build it on a set, which would never really have what that movie had with all that traffic and the stuff going on outside the windows. We'd have to like avoid the windows.
Yeah.
If we were shooting that way. And then it really looks closed in and everything. So my husband was walking down the street looking for something, and he passed this restaurant that they rented out their little corner cafe. They have a real big place that's like 2 or 3 businesses that they've taken over, and it's a Mediterranean place, which there's a Mediterranean place that the guy goes, the old manager goes, and he becomes a thorn in the owner's side. So he goes there, and then they had this corner cafe. So we came in, set dressed it for a day, shot for 5 days, had a day off, set dressed it for the next, because the first one was the French cafe, then it had a day off, then it became the Eclectic Cafe. And then we had really not even 6 hours to put it back to what it was, which was a Mediterranean restaurant.
So, but that's great. And that, like, being resourceful and using what you have, set dressing the same spot. That's the way to do it. I love that.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. And then my art director also lives in Long Beach. And so between she and I and the relationships that we have, there was just a lot of stuff we were able to do that we would not have been able to do in other cities for sure.
Yeah.
So
that's great. So like looking at, so when did you decide, because like as far as like distribution goes and like you said, you learned after Halloween Party, like how beneficial festivals can be potentially. How has your journey been with that, with distribution? Are you finding success with platforms?
It's such a such a challenging question. I find distribution as an indie filmmaker so hard and challenging, because there's so many distributors out there that are not that reputable.
Yeah.
And so
they're getting even more scammy as time goes on, more and more.
Yeah. So finding somebody that you really trust, and I always hear in all these courses and stuff, you can't even use that word in the same sentence, trust and distributor. It just doesn't work.
Totally. Unfortunately, it's unfortunately true.
Yeah. So what happened was Halloween Party, within about a year of thinking we were going to do it ourselves, we decided to try and I went to AFM with it. So at the time we had built our social media up. We had like I don't know, 85,000 followers on our page, right? Which was pretty phenomenal for our little movie, right? Plus we had the music, which anytime we could say, yeah, our opening song is an Oscar contender, they're like, what? Right. So that got me in the door at a couple of places. And there were 2 distributors that wanted it. And we were trying to figure out which one to go with. We went with one, and then they ended up deciding within a year that they were going to go a different direction, be more of a production company rather than a distributor. And so we got the film back from them. Really great guys. I mean, I don't have any problem with them, except for they had changed, right?
Yeah.
Their model. And so then we went back to the other distributor that was interested, and they took it. And actually these days it's making money. So
good, great. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, it took a while, but it's it's Leomark is the name of the distribution company. It's run by a husband, wife, Maria and Eric. They're great. I love them. They're so transparent. I highly recommend them to anybody.
This is unheard of. That's great.
Yeah, right. No, I just really love them, and I just think the world of them. But for Turnover, we had other producers on board besides myself. And so we were kind of looking around at different distributors. And somebody that got recommended to us was Indie Rights.
Okay.
And so we actually ended up signing with Indie Rights, and we've been really happy with them too. And so I actually am really happy with those 2 distributors. The other distributors on my other films, not so much.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that it's all up to me. Like the very first film I did, we had a distributor that already came with it, that they put some money into it, that my director set up. And then during Wedding Video, we connected with another distributor that just ended up not being a great distributor. And then Last Call at Murray's, I had no say-so in that, because there was multiple producers and they chose a different route. And so it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I've been there. Yes. And that's kind of the thing, when you do partner with individuals as a producer, I mean, you collectively bargain together, you collectively weigh in, and so many mistakes unfortunately can be made in that regard. And it's unfortunate. I had, this is a poster for my feature film Stuck, and there's 3 of us on it. And, unfortunately, like I brought a sales agent into the mix that, would have taken 20%. I thought going a sales agent route was the best way. One of the other people didn't agree and didn't want to give away any more money. And so we went with, a smaller distributor, and needless to say, it's been a mess. So that's just how it's always going to be. And so forming those relationships with people that you trust and that you both think the same and you see the same, outcome is imperative.
It is.
Yeah.
I think as an indie filmmaker, knowing that distribution is so important, you have to think of distribution when you first are putting the film together, to know that there are some people out there that are reputable and people that you would want to work with, even though they're not big, giant companies.
Right.
Sometimes the transparency and everything is well worth it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I would highly recommend either Leomark or Indie Rights.
I've heard of Indie Rights.
They're great.
Yeah, cool. Good to know. Very good to know.
And they're also filmmakers. In fact, that's the case with both Maria and Eric and Linda and Michael at Indie Rights. They're filmmakers, and that's how they started getting into it. And they still make films. So, it's great it's like they understand the struggle.
Yeah. Which also is, very important, because the thing is that when you get some of these indie distributors, they know that you don't have a ton of resources, and they steal from the artist. And then it's so hard, because they don't think like an artist.
Yeah. You put your life into it. You put everything into it. And then so many filmmakers are just completely, their film's stolen from them, like you said. And what can they do after that? They can't do anything.
It's heartbreaking.
They usually have a 15 to 20 year agreement that they can't get out of, right? So it is sad. So
So but when you go to make a project, I think that says everything. Like thinking about distribution, like who the audience is going to be, like knowing the answers to those questions.
Sure.
you know, and getting to facilitate those relationships that enable you to have transparency when you do get to
Right.
that stage.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So are you and your husband still, do you guys make movies together still, or is it mostly you?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, because of COVID, we kind of did something we decided to take a different direction. And so we really decided to go down the documentary road.
Cool.
So we bought a Blackmagic camera. We bought a lot of lighting equipment. We bought just the stuff that we needed to learn. We'd had Premiere, but we hadn't really used it much. And I'd used a different, editing program that I was really comfortable with, but it wasn't something that could handle like a feature or a longer project. And so I really needed to learn Premiere. And so just the learning curve, first of all, to like now be able to run a camera.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, it's
Right.
insane because I same exact thing. I got a Blackmagic. I'm in your boat. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, you have to learn that, and then you have to learn editing. But you know what? Honestly, it's made us both better filmmakers.
Yeah, because when you're directing, like knowing editing is it allows you to edit as you're filming,
Yeah,
like to save all
absolutely.
that time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have an editor I use all the time. I love him. We call him like our adopted son because he's like, like he could be my son. But I'm so spoiled to have such a great editor. And he's edited every single project I've done. And it's like, why would I try and edit? Like, I just don't believe that. I believe in hiring the best person for every job around you, and then they will make you look good, right?
Absolutely.
And
it's
when
a
you
collaborative environment.
Yeah, and when you try and do things yourself, when you're not necessarily that person that knows it, then you're just really not giving the project everything it can have, right? And so I just would rather hire people that really know their stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like same. I mean, I've been editing, I'm self-taught. I've been editing on Premiere for a long time, but it happens, with my roots were in comedy. And so me and my friends would do comedy sketches, or I would edit my own stand-up tapes for submissions and stuff. And so slowly but surely I got better. And, now I do my own short films, but I definitely would not have the know-how or the confidence in myself to do a feature.
Yeah, I think it just takes time, and
I want somebody else's eye too,
right.
And who has like all that experience where it's like I might not see something that they see, and that's
right. And also when you're directing, or especially if you write, direct, and edit, I feel like you really are closing down really constructive criticism you could get from fellow peers that know their craft.
Absolutely.
And you can get into a place where you just don't want to make a different decision. And that's a little bit of an, like there are filmmakers out there, real auteurs, where they want that control and they want it to be absolutely their vision, that's okay. It's just not me,
Totally.
But the nice thing is that, so I was telling you earlier, I had been working with like Chris and Alina all that time. So Alina came up. Well, I have a Patreon page where I give filmmaking tips. And so, and I also have a student level where people can make a film alongside me, right?
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So what I did was, it ended up being, we just finished it. It was 21 steps or 27 steps. And it's for our web series, Civil Disobedience. And so I really just took everyone through and showed them all the stuff that we're doing through that whole process. And there were a couple of people that went along with it, but there's people now that are looking at it and they want to do their own film, so they can go back and they can look at all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so anyway, Alina's been, supportive of it. And she I talked her into writing her own little series because she had an idea for her and her daughter. And so she's been experimenting with it. She pulled together like a little sort of an opening pilot episode. And so we filmed that, but instead of using Blackmagic, we used our iPhones.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And honestly, we made that choice for a couple of reasons. We made the choice because they have iPhones and they could continue, once they see us how to do it, how we do it, they can continue on their own.
Yeah.
Right. and they can at least get footage wherever they're at, because they travel a lot and they have like lots of little experiences. So it was, how can we give them something that's a tool they can use?
Absolutely.
And so, they're not going to go buy a black magic. They have no interest in that, right? And so my art director and I, Christy Mogg is her name, we both did camera. And so that was really cool to, as a director, have that ability to film whatever I wanted to see. Like I just filmed it the way I wanted to do it. And she had, and to take her ideas in, and she had some great ideas, and then to edit it. So that's the first project that we ended up doing all on our own with no one else, just like practicing out of this whole COVID. Oh, we'll invest in some equipment and make our own films.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I feel like that's kind of where the creator's mind went during this time, because it was like, how can I, do this as, how
can you still work?
Yeah. How can you still work and use those creative muscles? There was something that you said. So as far as, so you've got your Patreon and you've got your films out and distributed in the world. How do you, when you go to create a project, like in terms of financing, like do you have relationships with investors that you've made over the years? Do you crowdfund? Do you self, fund? What steps do you take there?
So a lot of the stuff, especially the features, we've had a fair amount of money in ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. We've got skin in the game on almost everything that we've done. The shorts, not so much. I've been really fortunate to be able to crowdfund for the shorts and make that work. There have been a few times where Mark's fronted some money for some stuff. Sure. Then we crowdfund and like pay him back. But really other than the features, we've pretty much crowdfunded.
That's great.
And I have a group that's kind of behind me that it's a screenwriting group that whenever I do something, there's a lot of screenwriters in it that have, already been part of past projects, that they want to be part of other projects. So I've kind of created this level where I give them IMDb credits, like at $250, $500, $1,000 for like associate, co-producer, executive producer.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them have been doing that because they need to build their resumes, and they're also like getting to, really building a relationship with me. And so sometime in the future, I'll read their work, it's
of course. Yeah.
So it's just all about a relationship. And so there's many of those screenwriters that I have actually went on to do other work with. In fact, one of them is a girl, Lena Poussette. I met in the screenwriting group, and she ended up being a part of a couple of my films. And then I had developed a project with another writer, and we brought Lena into that project. We created an LLC together. It's an anti-poaching project called Cat Dex.
Oh, cool.
So now we have that company, and we started out with a feature. She wrote and actually developed a TV series in basically a binge-worthy kind of TV series. And the other writer really wrote a novel out of it.
Oh, cool.
And we developed merchandise. And we've developed a game for it.
Oh, great. Wow.
So it's really super developed. And then recently I had written a script over COVID, and I brought Lena into that sort of to polish it,
Yeah.
I consider myself a good writer, like I can write something, I could tell a story, but I really feel like in anything else, there's better writers than me, and I can bring in someone and share credit with them, and they can really take the script to another level, right?
Absolutely.
And so in fact, I met through that same screenwriting group, Halloween Party, the girl that I wrote with there, Lorraine Griffith. I've written that with her. I've brought her into Turnover. She came in and punched up that script. She's worked on 2 other scripts with me recently, and now we're going to do another one.
Oh, great.
So so there's definitely people that I've, they put some money in at one point, and then they've become just
It's been, they invest
much
in
more
themselves
involved,
in that way.
right?
Really, like they
Yeah.
invest in you and themselves. Um,
Yeah.
which is a really great way and a really great tool, because in this industry, and especially somebody who wants to make their own films, especially an indie filmmaker, you know, experience pays. I mean, that's everything. That's how you grow
Yeah.
your skill set. So
Yeah, had somebody offered me that opportunity to you put a little bit of money into something and be a producer, build some credits that way, get to know somebody.
yeah.
Oh my God, I can't even tell you how much more that would have advanced where I ended up being, right? But and then I also just like, I like teaching. I like working with people and kind of helping them along.
Yeah.
And so the Patreon page is really kind of a place where I can put my experience. And if people go there, like for $5 a month, they can go and get like 6 tips a month, right?
Yeah.
And I have so many tips on it. It's like I think I have over 240 videos on it already.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And so, and then also like the student level, which is like $20 a month. Not only can they see like the whole how to produce a film, but they can talk to me for like 40 minutes a month about their own
Cool.
project.
Yeah.
Right.
So like a consulting type,
Not even consulting. I just like, they can talk to me, ask me questions and
Yeah.
about their project. Right. And so, but it's funny. I mean, even though I have that, like not that many people take advantage of it. So I don't know if it's that they're just not at the point to do that, which I think that's what it might be.
Yeah.
They feel like they don't have anything to
I
like.
think it's scary. Like, when you feel like you're still in the space of learning, like it can be kind of scary to be like, okay, here's my project. Let's talk about it.
But you know what? Also, because I've had this happen with a couple of writers that are, or filmmakers that are part of it. We talk and they get inspired.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why not talk just to get inspired?
Well, and
right?
that's my goal with the podcast. It's like I listen to a ton of indie film podcasts,
Yeah.
and it's mostly men, which was the impetus that made me start this show. But you just find when I listen to other people talk, I get inspired. And so when I get to just talk with people and hear their journeys, because this is indie film is yet another boys club, you know what I mean? But there are women out there doing what you're doing. And so it's really great.
Yeah. So, back to your question, Mark and I work on everything together. He's absolutely that perfect Zen partner for me where I can do one thing and he can do another. He's an engineer. So really like he's learned Photoshop to be able to make our posters. He's learned Premiere to be able to teach me so I can like figure out how to do the edit. He learned the other editing programs so I can figure out how to edit. So he's like, he figures out all the technical really stuff that I have no space for, because it just frustrates me. He basically takes that on. He puts it all together. He's turned our garage into a studio now.
That's great. That's great.
So it's like, so yeah, I think that the documentary series we're doing is called Halloween Obsessed. And we're literally doing it because we love Halloween and it's something to practice on and we're not going to get tired of it, right?
Yeah.
We can shoot a bunch of stuff.
True passion project and a true, are you meeting other people for Halloween?
But it's fun, right? And we love it. And so we shot quite a bit of stuff this last October, but not nearly what we wanted to because obviously the pandemic. Yeah. So we decided, and also the learning curve was just like really steep. So we're probably going to wait to put it out until this Halloween to try and get it, to take it to one of our distributors and have them put it out there. But, it gives us there's 2 opportunities I'm super excited about. One is these people that are putting together this haunted house and it's a family. But it's actually the daughter. She's like 17. It's sort of her brainchild. I think she came up with it when she was like 14 or 15. And her family's just like, oh yeah, okay. So they turned their house into like this haunted house and it's really expanded. So this year they're taking it to a much different level and really building it out and everything. And it's her and her friend that do it. And we're going to actually be following them along that path
Very
and
cool.
interviewing them, showing, the steps leading up to it. And then also I have another episode that's Halloween weddings.
Oh, cool.
And so there's a girl that I met on like another Facebook group, Halloween weddings, most amazing group ever. But anyway, so she's getting married obviously on Halloween, and she's gonna do the same thing with us, where she kind of like shows us the different things they're doing to get prepared. And then obviously we won't be there during their wedding, but afterwards we'll kind of do a follow-up. So it's really cool to be able to do that with people, but then also just to accumulate all the other footage that's amazing, right? And there's so many topics. So the whole show is about like, why are people obsessed with Halloween, right? Like, what is it about Halloween that makes people so obsessed? And so when you really get into meeting the people that do that, it's just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're having a blast.
That's so cool. I love the documentary space, that it's really opened up and people are a lot more interested in it. Like I remember, growing up, you talk about documentaries and it was like a very small niche group of people that cared.
Right. Well, we're kind of doing it like we call it a docu-series, because it's really telling, like learning about obsessive Halloween people in each different section, like haunted houses, or makeup, or weddings, or witches, or monsters, or zombies, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so when you get into each one of those topics, we were thinking we were going to co-host it with like comedians, but I think we're going to probably do more of a narration with it. I mean, it's kind of how we're starting out with it, but it's sort of finding itself. That's the other thing about documentaries. Like, it's not scripted, That's a whole different, you might think you're going to do one thing and it goes down a whole different direction.
Absolutely.
Which is nice.
Yeah. It finds its heartbeat while you're, very cool. I love that. And I just love even just even just being open to tackling these new genres, because none of all of your work is not like genre specific. It's all across the board. Yeah.
Right.
Which is great itself.
Yeah. In fact, the script I just wrote that Lena is co-wrote with me is completely different from anything I've ever written. I think I really am much more comfortable in sort of that dramedy, rom-com, comedy, area. But I wrote this political thriller that is just, it just makes your skin crawl.
Wow. Yeah.
It's about the organ harvesting that's going on in China.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so it's called Stolen Heart. And my manager, when she read it, she's like, "Oh my God, I've never read anything like this from you." but it's scary because it's true.
Because that's really happening, and that's insanity. Yeah. Well, amazing. Congratulations on finishing that.
Thank you.
That script. Yeah. As far as, so do you, outside of the independent stuff that you do, I know your roots are in art directing. So you're definitely a visual person. I could see how you were told that you were a frustrated director.
Right. Yeah, I definitely, that's the area I love the most, any kind of design. So I think I just have first, obviously as a writer, you see something when you're writing it, like you have a vision, but I think on set, being able to create that world, and then it's, the thing I love most about it is it's not just my vision. Like, I'm talking to all the creatives and really finding out what the world is, right?
Yeah.
And how to do that. And, it's funny because I used to say, look, I'm great going into a space, and especially in indie film, because you don't have a lot of money, right? So you're not going to be spending a huge amount of money with production design and really art direction. You're going in and you're using what you can.
Yeah, what you've
got there, right? Yeah. So what I love doing was finding things that were right for it, and then accenting them, right? Sure. So I would say, I don't know if I would ever be that person that would design like Star Wars or some, like, out, huge, weird thing. Like, I don't feel like that's
Right.
the kind of design I would do. But we did this other little short in the last couple of years, Jennifer Kramer. And she's really what I call an auteur filmmaker. She's a pianist, classically trained pianist, a classically trained actress. She's Stanley Kramer's daughter, and she just has this very unusual sort of way that she tells a story.
Yeah, an unusual lens. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's through music. So like through every piece that she plays, a character comes to her, right? And it's very visual, highly visual and highly unusual. So she did a great piece called Nakusa that literally was on another planet, right? And so we're like, how do we create this? And so Mark and I, we were going to Idlewild one time for like festival or whatever. And it was after the big fires there. And it was like, there was this whole area completely burned out. And he's like, oh my God, look at that. He's like, that like looks like what I think Nakusa would look like, right? I'm like, you're right. And so we got out, we scouted it and stuff. We took Jenny up there and ended up shooting out there.
Very cool.
But we had to take all the stuff, but it does have a very otherworldly feel to it. And so that's what I like doing. I like finding the things that fit, right, for the project. And I just think that people don't spend enough time on design. Like design, I think, takes your film from like just an indie film to something that looks much more professional.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%. Yeah. That was my big, like I didn't direct my feature. I just wrote and produced it. Which is why I'm directing more now. Cause I think you have that experience when you don't direct something and then it's like,
right.
Cause I'm big on production design as well. And that wasn't a focus of the individual who directed this film, which I mean, she did an excellent job. She made a rockin' little indie for sure. But I know that my taste is let's make this world come to life. Let's make these people pop. Let's make, there was a Ren Fair theme in this movie. And I'm like, their house should have Ren Fair stuff everywhere. Like, like that's a type of person.
Right. It is a type of person. Like the first thing. Okay. So the thing about design other than the fact that you're working with all the creative people and you're really trying to pull that world together, the other thing I love about it is you're not on it for very long.
Yes.
You're on it to create the world, and then the film wraps, you put the world away, and then you're on to something else, right? As opposed to a producer that is with it from the beginning to the end, right?
Right.
And so you can go on and you can be involved in so many more things than any other craft like directing or whatever. So that's what I love about design. But like even it's the little things make the biggest difference. So like in Our Father, it's about a family that's taking care of their father that has dementia, and he has a moment of clarity, shares a secret that no one's known, and it totally changes the family, and then he's out, right, and never says anything about it again. But he's literally like abusive to the family, and they're his caregivers. So one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to definitely keep all the colors in the colors of bruises, because they were constantly beat up. So if you watch it, it's very subtle, but they're in grays, purples, blues, and it's just a very, very subtle thing, right?
But the color palette these days, like that's incredibly important.
Oh, it's so important. And it's so important for each character, right?
Yeah.
Like every character has their own color, but they also have their own sound too.
Yeah.
So, like musically, right? And I never really thought, I always thought I was most afraid of the post process because I didn't know about it.
Right.
I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know how to do, create music. I didn't trust myself doing that. So, but after Halloween Party and being so involved with the creation of the music, like the music supervisor who we've become just the best of friends, Donna Britton Bukovic, she's worked with me ever since then. And just, I've become so much more comfortable with music. and what's the right thing. And sitting down and every musician or, that's going to score it, composer will say that they'll ask the same thing. Like, are there certain instruments that represent different characters? I'm like, and I've already thought of that. Right. And I never used to even think that way. And I think when you're on that level, then there's just so much more depth in the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
and people can't explain it. They're like, it's so good, but I don't know why.
They don't know why. So yeah, they can't put their finger on it, but it is because you took the time to really bring something to life. Because every living being in real life carries an energy. Every space carries an energy, and so the film captures that. And that's great. And it's so inspiring to hear how, as you've gone along, you're learning more and creating more depth. Yeah.
It's, I would have been happy to just probably be a producer, direct some stuff. I don't have to direct everything, but so it's but then when I really started getting into design, it's like, that's just the one thing on everything. I want to design it.
Yeah.
I just want to design it because I just feel like I can bring something and I'll do more than other people would do on it. So I feel like, and it just makes a difference. It makes such a huge difference on Wedding Video, which is a super cute film. Chris did a great job on it. In fact, I think he won a writing contest with it.
Oh,
and
cool.
he got it to some big person's company. Shelley Long from Cheers was attached at some level way back when. But anyway, so it's a story of a couple that they get married and they hire a wedding videographer, and they're the worst couple ever. They should have never got married. Anyway, so they break up, and the wedding videographer is so upset that they broke up that he takes them hostage and he makes them watch everything he shot, hoping they'll fall back in love and want to get married so he can finish his film.
That's hilarious.
Their wedding video. And so really, I'm so proud of that film. And if you see it, you'll totally understand it as somebody that thinks about design, how each location added so much to it. And because it has so many locations, it could have easily not been as colorful and lively and designed.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, each location, as you're saying that, I mean, it's a character, really. If you're
they are. It's like Idlewild for Nakusa.
Yeah,
it absolutely is a character of the film, the dead planet, right? So, but I kind of consider myself more like a designer and not really an art director. Like I know art directors, first of all, most of the time they're builders. They can build things and they really can construct things. And I don't see myself much as that person. I think about what I'd like it to look like, but then I really love working with an art director because they add a lot of other depth to it. Right. Sure. And so some of the art directors I've worked with that I love are for sure Christy. We're soul sisters. It's just in the whole art world and marketing as well. We just are great partners to work with. Yeah. In fact, our film Passage, the short film, we did that with Julia Parker, Christy Malga, and myself. And Julia plays one of the main characters. And that film was just so amazing to me. That's one of the films I shot that Jen Hook, the DP I work with normally, didn't shoot, but it was so beautiful. We shot it in Malibu.
Oh, beautiful.
Christy found the location. It's shot in an Airstream. It was basically we shot it while we were camping up there. It was really fun.
I love that. Anytime you can shoot anything in a beautiful location, you feel good doing it.
Yeah. And it was we set out to do pretty much an all-female shoot.
Oh, fun.
So I think there were 2 men on the shoot. Mark was one of them. And then there was our sound guy. We had 3 guys on the shoot and everybody else was a woman.
Very cool. I love that.
Yeah. It's important.
It's so important. Yeah. Now, one last thing, because you've done so much, do you work often? Do you mostly work non-union? Do you go the SAG route sometimes? Do you find balance? How do you feel about that?
I did non-union stuff up until Our Father.
Okay.
When I did Our Father, everything I've done after that has been union.
And have you done like the ultra low budget contract?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah,
okay,
we've done ultra lows, we've done new media. So the web series Carbon Dating, another great series. Just two baby boomer women awkwardly aging in a youth-oriented society. Hysterical.
Super
I was
relatable. Super relatable.
I mean, I was, but no one wants to see it for that. But no, it's a great show. And one of my best friends, her sister, saw Our Father and asked me if I would mentor her to make like her pilot episode. And so I said, well, yeah, let me read it. I loved it. And I'm like, I'll tell you, like, I literally love the whole series. And I think that you could do, well, I know you can do the whole series much less expensively if you do it all together, as opposed to doing one, going through that whole process. So she did, and she raised the money. And we did 3 different periods where like there was the first 2 days we shot at her house. That was all the basic stuff where it's the 2 ladies together. And then we went for 2 more days and shot location stuff here in Long Beach. And then we went 2 days into a studio, 2 or 3 days into a studio, and shot stuff that we just couldn't get anywhere else. And the studio was the best bet for it. Like some restaurant stuff and things like that. And so that was a lot of fun. But anyway, you asked me a question. I think I totally went off.
Oh, it was the SAG question and the union.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. Cause I feel like those contracts are, you know, they're friendly for the independent filmmaker.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's where it was, the new media, because Carbon Dating and Civil Disobedience, those were the new media. Then we did the short film contract with SAG, which was really easy. And then we've done the ultra low budget contract with the other three features.
Very cool. And that just makes me ask, because you do so much, just because, you know, this will be a helpful thing to know for people listening. Does your company just keep like insurance on hand, or do you just do insurance in each individual project? How do you navigate that?
Actually, we've this year we just bought insurance for because we're doing the documentary. So we have coverage through the whole year. But before that, we just did it per project.
Cool.
You know?
Cool. Yeah. Because there's like 2 different ways. And so that's why, I was curious.
Yeah. But there's some great ways you can get insurance out there. So, you know, like there's some places that you can, I can't think of the names of them off the top of my head, but I'll have to go back and look at it, but where you can actually piggyback with a production company and use their insurance and give them a producer credit on it.
Oh,
right?
very cool. That's a great tip. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's called like We Make Movies or something like that. And so you're just basically giving them but they do so much. Like you can also rent equipment from them. You can, you know, they also have a bunch of people that work there that if you need crew. So that's a great group.
Yeah. Very cool. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much.
What's your next thing?
My next thing, I'm working on, I desire to direct my first feature, but I'm working up to it with a couple more shorts. I did 0 budget, 2 0 budget shorts in the last year, but literally 0. It was just to play.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do one that I'm going to actually, you know, put in the money so that, you know, I can see, do it for real. Right. And then I'm hoping to direct a feature. I write. So, you know, I'm always working on scripts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Well, good luck with it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have gotten to connect with you. I feel like you're doing it the way that we all want to do it. So
well, you know, I'm very fortunate to have somebody that really allows me to do it. Right. Because I don't need to work. So
right. Yeah.
And that's not everyone's in that situation. It's really hard to have to work and come home and then do all the stuff you need to do. And so, you know, he says, I'm like one of the hardest working people that doesn't have a real job.
I feel like I relate. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you do, as an artist, you do spend so much time trying to pull it together. But, you know, when you're having fun working, that's a different thing.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't feel like work. So, I just feel super fortunate to be in that position where I do what I love, and that's why I can do more of it.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And it's also why, like, I love to inspire people, and sort of help them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sounds like every time you read someone's script, you're like, I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's
There's
great.
one thing that everyone says about me. It's like, don't let her set a date. If she sets a date, it's over.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it. That's great. You're a doer. You make it happen.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. I think it's a good thing.
I do too. I agree with you. So before we head out, I want you to first of all tell me what's, aside from the docuseries, what's in the works, and then let people know all the socials, your Patreon, exactly how to find you.
Yeah, so I think if you just go to runawayproductions.tv, everything's there, a link to everything, all my social and Patreon and everything. My reels there, so you can see it and everything. But really right now, my manager's really trying to sell like 3 scripts that I have finished right now. And, other than doing the documentary, I'm also looking at doing another documentary about going for the gold, with that whole concept of putting music in a film and getting it qualified for the Oscars.
Very cool.
And
yeah.
just that journey, right? Because we did it.
When you're not Adele, like, that's a cool process. Yeah.
Exactly. And if other filmmakers knew it, it does 2 things. Number one, it allows you to elevate your film to a level that people pay attention to it because it was that close to an award, right? And who knows, it might even, like, there's a possibility it could win.
Yes.
There's a possibility, right? I mean, there have been some songs that have won that have not been like by major stars or whatever. So, but one of the things I want to do with that is I really want to get the people that won for Once.
Yes, totally. Yes. They were so cute. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go to Ireland and I want to interview them.
I love it. Yes.
But anyway, so doing that little documentary, doing the docuseries, working on the series with my friend Alina, just helping her get it off the ground. And and then I'm going to be writing something with Lorraine again.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
stuff's in the works. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the pipeline.
Yeah, there's stuff. Oh, and on a fun note, it was so funny. Our friend Donna, who is our music supervisor, she had come out and we had filmed her partly for the music documentary, but also partly for the Halloween docuseries. And when she was here, she was like, oh my, because we were like making her food and everything every day. She's like, oh my gosh, you guys make the best food, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you should have a cooking show. We're like, what? No, we have too much going on. She's like, no, Facebook Live. So literally every Sunday, we have this cooking show we do on Facebook Live.
How fun. What is it?
It's just so much fun. Like, it's just us making recipes that we found. And so I think that also helped us, well, first of all, get over that everything doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes.
It's just an outlet, right?
Yeah.
To have fun. And we actually both just have a lot of fun with it. There's my ex. I mean, my husband, I was going to say my ex. My husband and partner, Mark. Anyway, but so yeah, that's what we're up to.
Where can they find you? When's the Facebook watch?
Oh, so the Facebook Live for the cooking show, they just have to go to my, well, actually they can go to my YouTube channel.
Okay.
Because I have all of them up there.
Yeah.
And then they can just like see the different ones. On the live, they'd have to be on my like Facebook friends group to be, to see it come.
Right. Gotcha.
But if you just want to see what we've been up to.
That's on there. It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. It's on my YouTube channel.
I love it. I love it so much. Well, thank you so much.
It's great to talk to you.
It's so great to talk to you as well. I love all the stuff that I've seen from what you've done, and I look forward to keeping up with it more.
Definitely. And I look forward to hearing about your project.